Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Lerman. I'm a speech language pathologist and community outreach for the parish school. We are very excited because tonight is our kickoff event for our adult education series. I'm going to give the Zoom time to get into the Zoom. So take a little bit of time to get your cameras in place and make sure that you're able to see. We are very, very excited. I believe that we are now starting our second year of monthly virtual adult education series. It's amazing to be able to get together as a community and learn from industry experts. This evening, I am especially excited to welcome Dr. Lockhart. Dr. Lockhart is a pediatric psychologist. She is a parent coach, and she is the president and owner of A New Day Pediatric Psychology. Actually, Dr. Lockhart is coming to us live from San Antonio, Texas. She cares about people and she wants the best for them in their lives. Dr. Lockhart has an easygoing and a very direct therapeutic style. She believes people do their best when they feel heard and have supportive people in their lives. And if I know who is Zooming in tonight, you are supportive people. Dr. Lockhart loves helping parents better understand and connect with their children in order to transform the parent-child relationship. And I know that we are so excited to share her with you this evening. And so before I hand it over to Dr. Lockhart, I just want to take care of some administrative things. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see Q&A, and feel free to, as questions come to you, to put your questions into the Q&A box down there. Click on it and you can put their questions in. If you are not quite comfortable with disclosing who you are, you can also make it anonymous. That works as well. And we'll be collecting those questions. And after Dr. Lockhart is finished with her presentation, we will give her a chance to answer them. And so if somebody has already asked a question that you really liked, go ahead and like it, and then you can upvote it and it will go to the top. I don't think there is anything else that I need to cover. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Lockhart.
Thank you, Amy, for that great presentation, and welcome everyone. So I am Dr. Anne-Louise Lockhart, and I am very happy to be talking with you this evening. And we are going to be talking about how to support your kids at home and really how to support yourself, because in order to support our kids, we also have to be balanced as well too. So I'm going to be presenting the information here, and I also want to leave lots of time for questions as well too. So that way any question literally you want to ask, it's up for grabs. Now, if I'm not able to answer it, I'll be sure to let you know and or direct you to where would be a great resource for you. So I'm a pediatric psychologist and parent coach in San Antonio, Texas. I'm a mom of two. I have a 9 and 11-year-old. Son is the younger one, daughter is the older, and I've been married for 23 years. I've been a psychologist for 16 years, and I got a great deal of my training actually with the military as a civilian here in San Antonio. That's why I actually moved here. So kind of a wide range of experiences, and that's why I think I'm so grateful for the training that I got with the military. And I also worked in the school system, and I've also worked in pediatric clinics as well as hospitals and primary care. So kind of a wide breadth of experiences. So whatever you want to ask, please feel free to ask it. But what I wanted to do and what I was asked to do is how to give you some tips from a pediatric psychologist point of view, because honestly, there are a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, it feels like. To me, even as a professional, I'm like, okay, wait, why is it, okay, when did that change? And it gets really confusing. So I wanted to lay it all out there, not from an opinion perspective, but from an evidence-based factual perspective. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that I present you're going to agree with. That doesn't mean that. It means that these are things that are given based on what has been shown to be effective and what has been shown to be helpful. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of these things. We'll talk about family connection, supporting kids at home, reading, language, and ADHD challenges. What if maybe you are struggling with executive functioning challenges? I did a collaboration post with another account this week, and a lot of people were like, oh, we need more about what if we struggle with ADHD and executive functioning. So we can talk about that. How not to constantly correct and teach, because not everything is a teachable moment. And then tips for parents in caring for yourself as well too. So let's start with the challenge of the now. So first of all, why is this current period so challenging? Since March of 2020, our world has changed, like our literal entire world. And some of the reasons why I feel like it has, and of course, while this was happening, we didn't have any evidence on this. People were like, okay, what do we do when we're under quarantine or there's a global pandemic? Like, we don't know. We haven't experienced this in this lifetime. So many of the reasons why there were challenges is because it was monotonous. I don't know about you, but it was like same Groundhog Day for a lot of months, a lot of weeks, and it felt boring. Another part is that people didn't have a break. For 9 months, for us personally, I worked from home. My husband taught from home. My kids learned from home. And I was working, presenting, seeing clients, and then helping kids with schoolwork. And then during my quote break, and then going right back, like it was exhausting. And so that monotony and no break could be a lot. Routines are disrupted. Many kids were on screens a lot of hours. And so that routine being disrupted, going to bed late, waking up late, all of those things. Also, things remain uncertain. We kept getting other dates in terms of when things would be back to normal. Things aren't still normal. And what does normal mean anyway? Also, it feels surreal when I would go out with my mask or in the beginning and not sure what I was supposed to do. Am I supposed to wipe down my groceries with Clorox wipes? Am I supposed to leave it outside and spritz it with, like, you know, everything was so uncertain and everything seemed just strange. And so that surreal feeling, if it's weird for us, you know, it's weird for our kids. And then we're just unsure of the ending. Like, how does this play out? Like when will we know when it's over? When will we know when we can, like, okay, let's do things again? So all of these things make life challenging. So one of the ways to address that is family connection, because what your kids are going to remember is how they felt with you during it. Now, let me give you kind of a quick example. When I was a senior in high school, I grew up in the Caribbean on a small island called St. Croix. And my senior year of high school, 3 weeks in, we got hit by a hurricane. It was considered a 100-year hurricane. And we really did not know what to expect. And it destroyed my home, destroyed my school. There was no running water, no electricity. We were under martial law because of mass looting. It was miserable. I got dengue fever from infected mosquitoes. Like, it was miserable, okay? But you know what I really held on to was traveling between my two aunts' homes, whose homes were not destroyed because mine was, and having the houses packed full of people who lost their homes and staying up late, playing games under candlelight, grilling food because we didn't have electricity, so on the charcoal grill. That is what I remembered. I mean, we had no electricity for 9 months, okay? So it was a major disruption in my social life and but what I remembered was that connection. And that's, although it was terrifying and there was a lot of trauma associated with the hurricane, what I held on to was the connection that we had as a family, as friends. So talking through things, talking through the traumatic events, through things that are scary, losing someone because of COVID or death or moving away elsewhere, talking through things, that is what helps kids become resilient, develop grit, and move on past what's going on. Listening to what's going on, listening, not dismissing them, and not saying things like, oh, well, other people have it worse than us. Well, as far as they're concerned, it was pretty miserable, and it's pretty miserable right now. So if that's how they feel, listen to what they have to say. Reading to them makes a big difference. Just connecting and reading and building their vocabulary. It's a great way to bond and connect. And it's just a great way to connect between a kid and a parent. And then play. Play is a child's language. So connecting with them through play is a great way to enter their inner world, because you'll see themes come out in the things that they act out, or the things that they build with Play-Doh, or the Legos, or the things they draw, the things that you see in the themes. So really connect at bedtime, connect during meal times. Spend one-on-one time together. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's a daddy-daughter date. Maybe it's a mom-son date. Whatever it is like connecting in ways that are meaningful, and share a value or a tradition or a ritual together. So maybe you all read together before bedtime. Maybe you pray together before bedtime. Maybe you do affirmations in the morning. Whatever it is having some kind of ritual that they can connect to. And the thing that we have to remember is, for a child's mind, they don't like, well, actually anybody's mind, we don't like uncertainty and unpredictability. Some of us like to be surprised and we never know what's going to happen, but most of us want to have some level of predictability. We don't want to show up to our job and maybe get fired. We don't want to go to school and then maybe the school shuts down. Like, we don't want that. So all of this stuff that's been going on in our world and in our city, in our state, has brought about a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability. And in our minds, especially as a kid, we need security. They need security. And in order for them to thrive, they need to have that basic level of safety and security, not just physically, but also emotionally, which means that if they don't feel secure, when you expect them to do their chores, hang out with the family, be inspired by something and do something amazing. When people said, oh, if you didn't write a book or start a blog during the pandemic, what's wrong with you? Well, okay, dude, like, if I'm not secure and safe, I'm not going to be writing no blog, so that security and that stability is really what helps our children. And so to be motivated to do homework, for example, or clean up their room is not going to be present. So some strategies to help. Mental imagery. What that means is, in our mind, we already fill in the gaps. So helping our child kind of develop a picture in their mind of what to expect can be really helpful. So for example, if they're going to be starting a new school or a new team or Girl Scouts, something like that, and they've never done this before, they haven't done it in a while, picturing an image and developing a story in their mind together that you both create collaboratively can be a really helpful thing, because then their brain is then learning, oh, this is what I can expect. Okay, so tomorrow, you're going to wake up, you're going to wear your super cute door shirt and your mismatched pants, because that's what you like to wear. And then you're going to wear your unicorn shoes, and we're going to have waffles and turkey bacon because that's what you chose. And then we're going to drive, and then maybe a little bit of traffic. Like, you actually walk them through and have them fill in the gaps. Who do you think you'll see? Do you think you'll see an old friend? How will you know if someone wants to be your friend? And when you can do that mental imagery, what you're doing is you're tricking the brain into thinking that we've kind of done it before, and we're rehearsing for the big production. Because our brain does it anyway. We think about doom and gloom, and sometimes we can go into panic mode because we're filling in the gaps. Instead, you're doing a mental imagery. You could even rehearse it. So if they're going to a new school or a new daycare or a new job that a kid is going to, a teenager, you can take that trip and do a rehearsal and walk through the classroom, or have the teacher record the classroom. Whatever it is, you can go through rehearsal and then role playing. Okay, what if I'm a kid in the class and I'm not making any sounds, I'm really quiet, how will you go up and introduce yourself to someone? So all of those things can be really helpful for them, because it walks them through what to expect, and it gives them a sense of security and safety. What if your kid is missing socializing? I still speak to a lot of families through virtual parent coaching who still haven't gotten together with friends. They're still isolating, they're still afraid, or they're still cautious, kind of the wide range of experiences. And so kids need social support. But the thing is, when kids are acting up or they're misbehaving, quote unquote, it's often because of this feeling of safety, lack of safety, or feeling lonely. And what we want to do is make sure that they have adequate social support. It doesn't always have to be in person. It can be through text, through FaceTime, through videos, through video chat, play dates, any of those kinds of things. Because one of the things that's really cool is a concept called the theory of mind. And what it is, it's understanding and knowing the mental states of other people. Knowing that even when you're not in someone else's presence, you're still being thought of. So for example, I'm working late today because I'm presenting to you all. When I get home, I may tell the kids something like, hey, I worked on a new TikTok. I want your advice on it because I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to think this is good. They're like, oh, you were thinking about what we were thinking? I'm like, totally. So the fact that I haven't seen you all day and you have been in my mind to the point where I want your advice on blank, or I swung by the store and I picked up this snack for you because I was thinking about you. That theory of mind is really important. So whether it's from a family member, grandparents, a friend, a teacher, that, hey, I'm thinking about you, you are being thought of. That is a really powerful factor for a lot of kids, because knowing that you are residing in someone's heart and someone's mind is a really powerful thing. It was really effective in therapy as well too. When I tell someone I was reading a book or I went to a conference and it made me think about you, that I think this strategy would be helpful in therapy. And you can just see them light up because they're like, yes, I still think about you. I still hold you in my heart, even when we're not together. So with executive functioning, those things are really important that we pay attention to. These are all executive functions. So if this is something that you're not familiar with, this is a really important area, because these are things that impact people when they have ADHD, when they have anxiety, when they're young and their brain is still underdeveloped. And these are all the areas that are impacted. And our frontal lobe in our prefrontal cortex, in the front part of our brain, is not fully developed until about age 26. There's some talk about age 30 now. It keeps getting later and later. But as of now, mid-20s is when your frontal lobe is fully formed and developed, and all of these things are hopefully more online. But if you never practice them, then you can't get good at them. So we want to help develop these things in our kids. Look for ways to develop self-control. Look for ways to develop flexibility and organization to provide them some support. So then what if you struggle with that? People are like, well, that's all fine and good, but I struggle with it. Like, what do I do? So first, start with identifying your areas of strength. What are you really good at? And then what are your areas of weakness? What do you suck at? Like, what are you really terrible at? And you rely on your spouse, your partner, a coworker, a friend to do it for you. Understand what your coping strategies are. What do you tend to do? Do you avoid? Do you go to sleep? Do you overeat? What do you do when you're not coping based on these executive functioning things? What do you find most helpful? What do you find least helpful? What are your triggers? What are your energy zappers? What are those things that you put off doing, but every time you think about it, you're like, oh, that leaky faucet has been leaking for 6 months. I'm probably wasting so much water. Those are energy zappers, because they're things that you're holding in your mind, and they contribute to the mental load and they become overwhelming. And that's why you become forgetful, why you're exhausted all the time, why you get irritated and snap at your kids. And then we have to think about what rejuvenates you. Does nature rejuvenate you? Does being around people, trying out a new restaurant, traveling, like what rejuvenates you, and what are you not doing based on the things that you value and that are rejuvenating? So one of the ways is to really, with self-control for yourself and for your kids, is work on getting in touch with your feelings and expanding your feeling vocabulary. I had so many parents say, oh, I'm so exhausted, especially during the beginning part of the pandemic. I'm so exhausted and I don't know why. I'm like, you don't know why? You're like home all day with your toddler and your teen. You're working 12 hours a day. How are you not tired? Of course you're tired. So being in touch with your feelings and label them. This is why I feel this, and connecting it. I'm feeling this because of this. Connect your feelings with your behaviors and your thoughts. And then the intuition part is be intuitive about your body. Where do you hold stress in your body? Where do you feel like things are too much for you. You know, for me, I started developing really bad shoulder and neck pain during this time because of all the sitting and all the poor posture I started developing because of being in the computer all the time. So finding ways to have intuition about your body and being in tune with your body. And then mindfulness. Having mindfulness and practice mindfulness and affirmation, which has been shown to be very helpful in regulation of your body, your mind, your spirit, all of your systems. So being present with your child, being present with your partner, being present in your job, rather than allowing your mind to go fast forward and speed ahead. What helps with ADHD and self-regulation? So these are all the things that are super helpful, okay? So we know about exercise that really, especially if a kid is bouncing off the walls, get them outside and away from the walls. Taking periodic 10-minute breaks, that's super, super helpful. Every 30 minutes you take a break, or every hour you take a break, depending on how much they can handle. Another thing that has been shown to be effective is relaxing or meditating for at least 3 minutes after exertion. So if they're doing something that is really super taxing for their brain, like maybe spelling or reading, something that's a lot, then just doing some breathing, doing some body stretches, some progressive muscle relaxation, tense and relax, just for a few minutes, and then get right back into it. Visualization, like I talked about earlier, is the imagery, picturing yourself finishing the task, how you will feel when you're done with the task. And then giving yourself little small rewards. There's a lot of stuff out there that says rewards don't work. You know, rewards can work because it can be motivating, especially if you're doing it for yourself. That, okay, when I've studied for 45 minutes, I will talk to my friend for 10. Or when I finish this in this period of time, then I will whatever. So like giving yourself small little rewards, little bonuses. Self-affirming statements can be also helpful. Naming your emotions and then eating well-balanced meals. These are all things that could be really, really important with ADHD and self-regulation. Flexibility, that's another executive functioning skill. This is something that we want to teach our kids how to get unstuck, finding opportunities to reboot their system. So they're feeling upset, they're melting down, they're getting anxious or angry or worried. Okay, let's take a breath and let's just take a break. Let's just take a break. Let's find ways to reboot, using metaphors and analogies to help them know that, you know, when our computers get overheated, sometimes we got to shut them down and start over again or give them a rest. Our brain needs the same thing too. That's okay. It's okay if we need a break. And then practice calming strategies. Practice how to calm down. Do you lie down? Do you do deep breathing? Do you do visualization? Do you do mindfulness? What are you going to do to practice calming strategies? And then teach it to them. Do it for yourself. Engaging in self-talk and thought stopping. So talking to yourself and having your kid hear you say that, man, I'm so frustrated. I paid the bill late. Now I got a fee. I'm just so angry at myself. Okay. I can't do anything about it now. I will call the agency, make sure that they understand it was a mistake, ask them if they'll reverse the fees, like whatever it is, like have them allow your teenagers to hear you struggling with something, but then getting past it. That the solution is so important. Same thing if you're fighting with your spouse or your partner and your kid overhears it or hears it directly. It's okay for them to see the repair, for them to say, you know, we were yelling at each other and that is not what we should be doing. I know it was very scary for you. We're very sorry. We are apologizing and we want to do better. So the repair is so important. And then changing your language. Get rid of the shoulds and the have tos and the nevers and the musts and saying things like using more flexible language. It's okay when things don't work out as planned. That's okay. So you don't need to constantly correct or teach. Not everything needs to be a teachable moment. Well, you know, when you had a tantrum, it really upset mommy. Do you know that you have to practice executive functioning self-regulation? So let's do like that. That is unnecessary. And you'll actually send them into a nuclear tantrum. So don't even do that. Parents and caregivers and teachers, we talk way too much to our kids. We over talk things and it frustrates them. They literally get annoyed by it. So instead, just connect with your presence. Limit the screen time so they can be focused. And actually, for a lot of kids with ADHD, with autism, with anxiety, with a lot of dysregulation type disorders and personalities, they will be more dysregulated with too much screen time. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to when my kid gets really irritated and annoyed, it's often because they've spent too much time on the screen. And maybe we need to limit that. Also, create new routines, traditions, moments together, like I talked about earlier, doing things that are fun. My family, we do every Friday night is family movie night, and we do that pretty consistently. So things like that, that could be something they're looking forward to, that want them, that kind of push them to engage with the family. And then doing child-focused and child-led activities. So it's important to be empathic, be clear and direct, state what you need, state what you expect, be honest, drop the shame and guilt, and then avoid being overly apologetic. It's really important that you take ownership of it, because you are constantly modeling and your kids are constantly watching you. If you are if you're not being genuine, if you're being hypocritical, they will pick up on that, and that gets modeled to them. So it's really important that you pay attention to those things as well. The other thing too is keeping things, quote, normal. We focused a lot for a long time on how things are unfair and how it's this and how it's that. Try not to focus too much on that, because again, our kids pick up on that language. Avoid dwelling so much on the past and really look at how we can make things better given the circumstance. And move away from just the complaining, the constant complaining. Maintain routines that keep you and your kids on track, and then start new routines. Do things differently, so they can know that, yeah, it's okay to pivot. It's okay that things were annoying and inconvenient, and it's okay to shift it. So again, reducing media viewing, because there's a lot of stuff on TV that our little kids should not be seeing or hearing. Monitor their social media usage, or get an app that can monitor and parental controls of things you don't want them accidentally seeing. Setting limits on that screen time, again, that can be very dysregulating for dysregulated kids. Find time to get outside, interact with other people, make favorite meals, do fun activities, talk about tough stuff. You are not shielding your kids from things that they already know about. A lot of our kids already know stuff already. We just don't want them seeing all the rawness of it on media. They should be getting it from you. So talk about those things, the things that are going on with riots, or with racism, or with discrimination, or with the stuff with the new laws, or the mask, or not. Like, these are hard things to talk about. But instead of giving them your opinion, just say, hey, what have you heard at school about? Or what have your friends been talking about that? What are your thoughts about it? And it doesn't have to be we take a side and they take a side. It's just talking about it, so that they can feel like they have informed opinions. So some tips for taking care of yourself. Don't take your kids' behaviors personally. This is one of my biggest tips. I know it's hard to do, but it's extremely important to do. Many times parents see a kid's behavior and they think they're so ungrateful. Look at everything that I've done for them. They're not thinking about that. And they don't need to think about it, honestly. They are living their life. They're trying to stay within their lane and in their mindset. And they need a parent who's stable and whose ego is not easily bruised by their behavior. It's also important to hold a space for the child. This is a term that my psychologist friends and I make fun of a lot. Hold the space. But it's kind of true. Like, we're holding the space, which means that we are being present. We are communicating to our kid, your feelings, who you are is not too much for me. I can handle whatever you have. I can handle it. Providing unconditional love and acceptance. It doesn't mean that we accept the behavior that's negative. We're accepting them and knowing that they're just having a hard time, and we can help them maneuver through that we can support them and love them through it. And then maintain safe boundaries. So if they're wailing on you, you're not going to be like, Mommy is really hurt by your behaviors. I'd appreciate if you don't. No, we're not doing any of that. We're going to say, you're angry, and I hear that you're angry, but you do not hit me. You do not put your hands on my body. That is not what we do. We treat each other with respect. So you have safe boundaries, you have structure, and you provide the redirection. And it's also important to model flexibility. Change up the routines. Use flexible parent language, and flexibility is a big one for kids who get stuck. Again, use the self-talk out loud and verbalize when things don't go as planned. All of these things are really helpful for kids to understand. I don't have to get stuck in what I'm doing. I can get out of this. So some quick tips I think can be really helpful. I use this for my own kids, and I teach this to a lot of parents when I do parent coaching. And this works extremely well, even for like your spouse, your partner, for customer service, for a disgruntled employee. It works really well across the board. So a dysregulated person or child is someone who's unbalanced, someone who is freaking out about something, who doesn't feel okay, in harmony with what is happening. So start out by listening and then reflect it back. Oh, what I hear you saying is, and just reflect it back, say exactly what they say. You're just mirroring back. You empathize by using a feeling word. That sounds really disappointing. That sounds really hurtful or painful or frustrating. Whatever feeling word, validate that. You know, lots of kids are going through the same thing and it's been so hard. A joint solution. What do you need from me in this moment to help you get through this? What can we solve together? What can we do together to help you feel better about it? Did you just need to vent or did you want to find a solution? And then you offer a reassuring statement. I am here for you and I will help you with anything that you have concerns with. I'm here to talk about these things. But you don't keep offering more reassurance. This is the biggest thing that we do oftentimes with a dysregulated kid, especially with anxiety, is that we over reassure. And that is a dangerous road to go down, because if they keep saying, yeah, but what if I throw up when I go to school? You'll be fine. Yeah, but what if I throw up? You'll be fine. You didn't eat anything that will make you throw up. Yeah, but what if I do? And then you get into this loop that no response you give will be satisfactory. And if you keep engaging, what you're giving them the message is, you keep engaging because there is actually maybe something I should worry about, because if there was nothing to worry about, then you wouldn't keep reassuring me. So it really becomes this feedback loop that happens that really becomes very dangerous to go down, because then you actually reinforce the thing that you want to eliminate. So what do? We empathize, use empathy first, expand their feeling vocabulary. There are so many resources out there about feelings and vocabulary. There's a couple that I really like on Instagram. One is my friend Journey to Wellness. Bex has amazing things, lots of illustrations that really drive home that point. So Journey to Wellness on Instagram, and I think she's on Facebook as well, is a really good resource. The other one is Wholehearted School Counseling is another really great one on Instagram. She has amazing things. So those two, Wholehearted School Counseling and Journey to Wellness, are great ones. Those are just some of my favorites to expand their feeling vocabulary so that they can be in touch with what are the different emotions beyond like sad, mad, and glad. Help them to name their sensations. You know, oh, gosh, I feel tension in my jaw. Oh, I feel overwhelmed in my shoulder. My head just feels like it's pressure because I just feel so overwhelmed by, but connect the emotions with where in the body they might be feeling it. Kids often feel distress in their bodies first before they actually feel it in their emotions, which is why they go to like the ER, the pediatrician, because they may have a stomach ache because they're actually anxious. So that expanding their somatic intelligence, which is where in my body am I feeling my emotions, is really important, especially with kids who've experienced trauma. So here are some helpful scripts, and then we're going to open up for questions. So some helpful scripts. So if they say something like, I'm really afraid, I'm really scared about blank, you can say something like, of course you're scared. Sometimes I feel scared too. My heart is beating really fast. Is yours? I'm here to keep you safe. If they're feeling uncomfortable, you know, lots of people feel uncomfortable right now. Sometimes I feel discomfort and I notice it in my jaw. It's okay to feel uncomfortable when things are so uncertain. If they're concerned about safety, you can say it's our job as adults to keep you safe. Or you can say, you're safe. Maybe I'm curious about that too. We'll figure it out. That's what we do. We're problem solvers. If they're concerned about, why do I have to wash my hands all the time? You know, hand washing does get old, right? That's that validation. What's a cool song you can sing while you wash your hands? Of course, you're not going to tell us you're a teenager because that's going to be ridiculous. But hand washing and finding solutions to the problem could be really good. If they think things are unfair, yeah, it's hard to feel that way. Maybe they're upset. Why is COVID? COVID is dumb. COVID has ruined my life. You know, it has really been inconvenient, but you have been such a trooper. You should be so proud of yourself for pushing through even when it felt miserable. And then if they're struggling with transitions, you're not sure if you can do hard things. You feel unsettled, unsure. You know, it's okay to feel the way you feel. Let's think of some creative ways to find a solution to the problem. Okay, so I just wanted to give you some resources in addition to some of the things I already talked about. These are some courses that I have. There's actually some more that I've added since And you can go to anewdaysa.com. I have several courses for just across the board. If you're dealing with tantrums, meltdowns, a highly sensitive child, a kid with ADHD or anxiety, I have a variety of different resources. And then I have a course that I just released a couple weeks ago. If you are a parent of a tween or teen ages 9 to 19, it's a comprehensive course. So it has everything in it. It's 9 modules and it's packed full of information. And then you'll also get a 97-page download of everything that I discuss in the course. So those are all things that I have available as resources for you. And then this is my contact information if you are looking for support, inspiration, or a good laugh from a reel. So those are things that I have on my Instagram as well as Facebook, and then my website as well. All right. Okay.
Thank you. That was
Welcome.
amazing. And I know I'm trying to figure out, I guess I'll click on that link and, I have a teenager, so I'm ready. In the meantime, we're going to take a few minutes to get the questions taken care of. I want to, if it's okay with everybody else, I want to let you know of something very exciting coming up, which is our 13th annual fall luncheon, giving a voice to children. And every year we are so excited to welcome a keynote. And this year we are welcoming Stacy Crowley. She is a speech language pathologist. She called herself a communicologist, a neural architect, and a storyteller. And on October 7th at 7 o'clock, she will be taking a deeper dive with us and talking about emotional intelligence for 2021 and beyond. And together with Stacy, she is going to help us find that balance that we all need to show up and guide our children and to support our children on their journey and on behalf of our children. And it's going to be actually a really great continuation of Dr. Lockhart's discussion tonight. So that'll be really exciting, and stay tuned to RSVP for that webinar. Let's see, I believe we are ready to get to our questions. And we had some ahead of time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to start with those. Do you have any tips for children with limited language? Because at the parish school, we serve children between the ages of 2 and 12 with communication and learning differences. And so many of our children are really working on expanding all of the language that you talked about, the emotional vocabulary. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think this is where play comes in, because you don't need verbal language to communicate, because there are people who are nonverbal, there's people who use sign, there's various ways to communicate. And so I think we have to remember that there are many ways to communicate, and play is a huge part, especially when you have a little, and especially when you have a kid who is pre-verbal or has struggles with communication, is a lot of things can be overcome, and you can find connection through play and through other things like artistic expression, whether it's through drawing, whether it's through dancing, through music. So think outside the box and find ways to really connect with them in the ways that matter for them. And I think that could be a great one for them.
That really resonates with us, especially on our campus, because we have quite a large focus on theater and computers and makerspace and getting outside in nature. And so that is such a huge part of our programming on our campus.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. Do you have any great tips for adult self-talk so we don't take it so personally? I know that just speaking for myself, I tend to take it very personally. What kind of tips do you have for that?
I think it's the self-talk is helpful to keep in mind in the moment. So saying something like, I can handle what's going on right now. I may not feel it, but I'm able to. My kid is having a very hard time right now. I just need to be able to help them figure that out. I can handle this. My kid is not too much for me. Finding out, even like what I often tell parents is, rather than looking at the behavior, because we often see it as a behavior problem. It's not a behavior problem, it's a brain problem, it's a skill problem. Kids misbehave in our view from our adult brain because they don't have the skill to not behave that way. Because if they had the ability to be flexible, if they had language, if they had self-control, they wouldn't be rolling around in the Target waiting, line. Like if they had it, they would do it. Right. So instead of seeing like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. What is wrong with this child? What is, and you have all these lists of guilt tripping, tell yourself like, yeah, my kid is having a hard time because their brain is not fully developed yet. Of course they're having a hard time. I've just been dragging them all over creation because I want to have me time, and I took them along for the ride, and now they're like overstimulated. And so I think we have to look at it from a skill problem, a skill deficit rather, and that their brain is not fully mature yet. And it's not about us. And the interesting thing is, when I meet with kids who are able to articulate that, that's almost always what they say. I wish my parent wouldn't always like take my behavior personally. I know that I can be too much, but it's not about them. Like, I had a hard time, or I'm overwhelmed, or I feel depressed, or I'm lonely. Like, they say that. They're like, I know I'm obnoxious at times. I'm not trying to be. And I wish they would think better of me. I wish they would feel like I'm not trying to ruin their day or the family outing or their life.
Yes.
We can't take it personally. It's not about you.
Like, I can handle what's going on right now.
Yes. And if I can't, then I need the support and I need the skill set to handle it, which is why I do the courses that I do, why parent coaches are available, why you have a child psychologist helping out your kid. Because if you can't handle it, then you need to be equipped to handle it. Because if you're being triggered by your kids, it's because you're not equipped to, because you wouldn't be triggered unless there was a trigger for you, which means there's something that's unhealed. Right?
Yeah.
Because then otherwise you wouldn't be triggered. Otherwise you wouldn't be offended by it. You wouldn't be annoyed by it. There's something that's not been solved in you, that you are taking this behavior personally when it's not about you. It's about what your child needs. We can't make it about us.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Okay. Thank you for this session. It is a tremendously helpful session. My question is regarding meltdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Can we handle a meltdown of a child on the spectrum when their behavior becomes aggressive toward other people before they recognize their own feelings? Yeah. How can we channel or redirect them in order to start doing these calming practices?
Excellent question. So the most important thing to remember about meltdowns is handling and addressing them during the meltdown. It's too late. It's too late. Okay. Because meltdowns are different from tantrums. And because you asked the question in relation to this, I'm sure you probably already know that. Because tantrums are about, I want this. There's a desire that I want, like to stay up late, more TV time, a chocolate in the Target line. And you said no. And so I'm going to have a tantrum, because if I act up enough, you'll give in and give it to me. So it's for a desired goal. A meltdown is a dysregulated state. I'm overheated, I'm overstimulated, I'm over hungry, the clothes are too tight, the wristband is too tight, whatever it is. So there's something that it's kind of like a panic attack in a sense, where their behavior is just kind of done and they just kind of break down. So once the meltdown occurs, it's really too late, unfortunately. So the way that you really should be handling meltdowns is before the meltdown, is practice calming strategies throughout the day. Giving your kids tools, maybe, every 20 minutes you take a break and do a breathing exercise, or you do a wiggle break, or you do, proprioceptive, hang upside down or something like that. You do a spinning exercise, whatever it is. And then you practice and rehearse alternatives to aggressive behaviors. And that's where the play comes in. So you pretend, maybe they're the teacher and you're the defiant student, and how do I deal with this? What do I do when these things happen? And then you prepare them for this. Prepare them for you know that every time you go out, or every time you go to the park, or every time you are in a line too long, you know that they're going to have a meltdown. Prepare them for that. What do we do when? What do you need most when? Maybe they need an activity bag, a busy bag. Maybe they need a snack or an iPad break. Can you tell mommy when you're feeling like you've had enough? What is the symbol or the secret code word that you can use? So a lot of meltdown is in the preparation, honestly. But if all that fails and they still have a meltdown, because they're going to, then you just remain calm. That's where you go back to, it's not about me. It's not about me. They're having this tough time because they're not able to regulate and manage themselves. And that's where you hold the space, and you stay present, and you stay calm, and you don't allow yourself you allow them to stay safe, and you allow other people to stay safe, whatever that looks like. Have a barrier, put a cushion in between you and them if they're wailing on you, whatever it is. Go outside, take a break, go for a walk, but do things and limit your talking. You don't want to do too much talking during this, because they are in fight and flight mode, and your logic talk will send them out of control, because they're emotional, and you don't want to bring in any logic into that situation because they're not thinking logically. So that's a tough one. And I would say also, if you haven't been connected already, occupational therapists are excellent for that kind of stuff. They do amazing work in that area. So
thank you. Okay. What can we do when a routine cannot be followed for one day? How can we handle an impulsive reaction from our kids? And how can we explain to them that it's only that day that the routine will not be possible to follow? There are moments when it's not possible to prepare them for the anticipation of that change.
Yeah, that's where the flexibility and the helping them to solve problems comes in. And that's why visualization and kind of practicing what if scenarios. So, I know that you're looking forward to going to the pool with your friends. What if it's raining? Or what if they cancel at the last minute? Or what if you don't see anybody that you know? Or I think in other ways, you practice and rehearse for those things that are inevitable. Because then what you're doing is you're creating a filing system in their brain that, oh, when this happens, yeah, I'm going to feel really bummed and disappointed, but these are my options. So flexibility and problem solving are super important for kids like that, because a lot of those kids, what is the issue is psychological and behavioral rigidity, which means they get really stuck in things are supposed to be this way. It's supposed to work out that way. I'm supposed to study and get a good grade. And they don't understand, well, sometimes life sucks. And so when you can really help them understand that we can prepare, but we can also pivot if we need to. And it's about just rehearsing and practicing, rehearsing and practicing. So I like a lot of what if, then what scenarios with kids like that, so that they can practice them in other ways when there's not a time crunch in terms of something going on.
That's helpful. Let's see. Okay. My daughter has a symptom of sensitivities to animal sounds like dog barking, cicadas, crows, hen, rooster. She will cover her ears screaming or crying when hearing those animal sounds. I think she feels insecure at home because of those noises, that she will have to have music on all day to be louder than those noises. Do you think it is a psychological symptom? Do you have any advice where I can start to help her overcome that? Thank you.
Yeah, so that sounds, that sensitivity, that it's a sensory sensitivity. And so this is something that could be, it might be a sensory processing issue, not necessarily a disorder, just a sensory processing issue. There are some people that are just more sensitive to sounds for whatever reason. It could be a hearing issue. So checking out her ears, making sure that you rule out anything medical that's going on, because she could have tinnitus, she could have sinus infection, she could have just a poor hearing or partial or hearing loss. Any of those things can make sounds feel unbearable. And so I would say first rule out any medical reasons for that. And then that could be something that an occupational therapist or a psychologist could help with, where you help her what they call systematic desensitization. And what you are doing is you're basically exposing the person to the feared or avoided thing through small increments towards it. So for example, she doesn't like the sound of a dog barking. So maybe the therapy intervention might be just hearing a dog barking with a little bark from a distance a long ways away. And then seeing the picture of a cute little dog with a little whiny sound maybe. And then it gets maybe louder and louder, closer and closer over time. And so you would kind of handle it the same way you would like a phobia, a specific phobia in a sense. And that could be something that could be helpful. So that way, but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of effort. And so seeing someone who's trained in doing that would be helpful, because what happens is that the more she avoids, the more fearful she's going to become. And we don't want her to continue to avoid. Avoidance feeds anxiety across the board. So if you allow your kid to avoid something that they're afraid of, they're going to be afraid over time. They're not going to get better over time.
That's wow. So it's counterintuitive.
Totally. We think, oh, I'm protecting my kid because I'm protecting her from the flushing toilet and the barking dog. No. What you're actually doing is you're communicating. That's the over reassurance thing. You're communicating, oh yeah, you really should be scared. That's why I'm preventing you from even experiencing it, because it's so horrible. So then what you're doing is that they're not allowed to actually face their fear, and they're actually leaving at the height of their fear. And when you leave something or a situation at the height of your fear, you're basically conditioning your body and your mind to say, oh, when I'm afraid, I jet real quick. And I don't allow myself to feel uncomfortable and work through it. So yeah, it actually makes them worse.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for your information. It is very helpful and calming. When trying the stories to prepare them for future activities, what if they are totally unwilling to participate or engage?
Okay, so that's where you really need to know your kid, because some of this stuff seems dumb to them. Just like breathing is really good at relaxing, but some kids are like, I know how to breathe, that's dumb. So then what you want to do is really then tune into your kid, know what your kid, how your kid is like. And that's where you can integrate things, whether it's story time, role playing, maybe you integrate it, maybe you do a TikTok dance with them and you're doing something that integrates the skill you actually want them to practice. But you have to be creative with it, where if it's something that you want them to learn and they're not willing, that's when you have to think outside the box and educate them on why learning this or understanding this could be helpful to them in the long term. So just kind of reading them, figuring out, okay, what is it? What makes them kind of tick in this way? And how can I bring it into their world so that they'll be more willing to do it?
Okay, what do you recommend for a repeated behavior by a 2.5-year-old who pulls away while trying to put him in the car seat and runs for the street laughing, thinking it is a game being chased?
Okay, so if you don't follow my friend, Mr. Chaz, on Instagram, this is his thing. Like, he talks
Mr.
about
Chaz.
this. Yes, Mr. Chaz. He does a lot of stuff with teachers, with schools, and with little kids. And one of the things that he talks about is doing a song about getting buckled in, whatever it is that you want them to do, that they're kind of not doing the thing. And the other part of it too is, again, finding out, well, what is the reason why they're doing it? It goes back to a skill set, right? That a kid isn't doing a thing because they don't have the skill to not do it. They don't know how to inhibit their responses, how to have self-control. And that's a 2.5-year-old. Like, 2.5-year-olds have no self-control whatsoever, none whatsoever. And so the reason why they're doing these things is because as they're doing it, it feels fun. As you're chasing them and screaming to stop, it's like, you're chasing me. Like, it's a fun thing.
Right.
So it's really about practicing, rehearsing, doing it at home, maybe having the car seat at home in the living room and practice getting in, maybe practice beating the clock, but trying out those different things so that in the real world situation, they know how to respond. So I would just say, again, keep in mind that your kid is not trying to make your life miserable. They just don't have executive functioning, and it's not fully functioning. And so they can feel irritating in those moments.
I especially love that you referenced, did you say Dr. Chaz or Mr. Chaz?
Mr. Chaz.
Mr. Chaz, singing is something that we talk a lot about, especially in our early childhood, because the truth of the matter is, like, as you said, Executive functioning, not there. Behaviorally, not there. And they're not language experts at 2.5.
Right.
So when you were talking about creating meaningful routines and creating connection, music can do that.
Yes. Yes. Big time.
Great idea. Great idea. Okay. Hello. Thank you for putting this together. My daughter is 13 years old with APD, dyslexia, and ADHD. She's having anxiety now. She gets frustrated when neurotypical adults like teachers and coaches don't understand what she is saying, and she shuts down or gives them attitude, and she gets in trouble. Masks do get in the way of communication.
Yeah.
How can we navigate this? Because I'm getting annoyed too.
Oh yeah, I hear that. That's a tough thing, especially, and I think this is where it's so important that we advocate for our kids, because a lot of our traditional school systems are stuck in a very old way of seeing kids and teaching. And they don't know how to deal with kids who don't fall under the neurotypical type of learning and being. And so a lot of these kids then hate school, hate interacting with adults and teachers and coaches because these individuals don't understand them. So I would say really a lot of the parents that I work with, I really give them tools to give to their teachers, for example, or ways to talk to them about, this is what my child has, and this is where they're struggling. And this is where 504s and IEPs come in. So individual educational plans, accommodations. Schools are required, especially if they're state-funded public schools, to make reasonable accommodations for everything that you mentioned that your child has. And if they're a private school, they don't have to, but this is where, again, you advocate that your child will be more likely to succeed, enjoy school, and be more pleasant overall in the process because they feel like you can connect and that you can teach the way that she learns. So I would say really talking with the school about and really being an advocate for your child and making sure that she receives appropriate accommodations for those things. And then educating her about that these are considered protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. A child who has any of those diagnoses that you listed are protected under those things. And so it's about advocating for them and giving the school and your child the tools that she needs so that she can be successful. So yeah, that's a tough one. It's a really tough one because I think all of this stuff and the way that our schools, many of our schools work, it's really does a disservice to a lot of kids who don't operate under the typical way of learning.
Okay, one more. How can we help our children to notice how others are feeling? My son, who's 9, often struggles to play with others appropriately. He tends to be very rough or struggles to initiate an activity that isn't wrestling, rough, or hurtful to others. Kids will start playing with him, and then when the other child is no longer enjoying the activity, he struggles to process how the other child's feeling. After the play ends and they're gone, we are more successful at talking through how the other child is feeling. But in the moment, I don't seem to have success.
Yeah. This is the disconnect that often happens with kids because of the executive functioning, once again. So emotion and logic are things that I always want you to remember can be at war with one another. Those two things are processed in the relatively same part of the brain. The amygdala is what processes emotions, and logic is also processed in the prefrontal cortex. That means that when I'm feeling these exciting feelings and I'm dysregulated in some way, then I don't remember all the things that you taught me last week or just earlier an hour ago. Like I'm having so much fun, my body is stimulated and I'm excited and I'm like really in the moment. And so all the lessons that you just taught them, it just goes out the window. So what corrects that is repetition over and over and over again so that it can be consolidated into long-term memory. And so then one day he can access, oh yeah, the reason why they're not wanting to play with me is because I'm being too aggressive and too rough. Okay, got it. And that's the frustrating part. So it's about repetition and making sure that you're teaching it to him in different ways, through play, through drawing, through role play, through rehearsal, maybe even connecting with a friend who's maybe more patient and can help him and learn through that, so that after repeated exposure and repeated practice, one day it'll just click. And that's the long answer, because it is a long game. Parenting is a long game, especially for kids who are more dysregulated. It takes a lot of repetition before they finally get it. So
that's, oh my gosh, you answered every question. And
awesome.
it's 8 o'clock. And I thought that your answers, I mean, they were so honest, and they were so, all of the tips were so functional and practical, and in language that any parent can truly understand. This has been wow, lots of learning.
Good.
And connecting to something that is so precious to all of us, which is parenting. We love our kids, and to have somebody like you, Dr. Lockhart, here to guide us through those moments when it feels really hard, giving us those tips, those tricks, those tools. It's just been an incredible hour. So we thank you.
You're welcome.
Hope to stay in touch.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. And if you need any further support, my team and I here in San Antonio, we offer virtual parent coaching. And if you're in the state of Texas, we offer therapy for kids online. So that is available. We have several team members here. And if you're in the immediate San Antonio area, I have a behavior therapist who goes to your home if you are having struggles with routines, tantrums. The worse the behavior, the more she loves it. So, there is support out there, and whether it's us or we can help you connect with somebody in the community or in your area, we'll help you do that as well too. So there is help out there. Don't do this alone.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
To all of you who joined us this evening, thank you so much. And we will see you next time on behalf of the parish school. That was just awesome.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.